Hello from Kenya. My name is Rachel Voss, and I'm a gender specialist with CIMMYT, the International Maize and Wheat Improvement Center. I've recently been working with Jason Donovan, Peter Rutzer, Jill Cairns, Mike Olson, and others at CIMMYT to take stock of the big issues in gender-responsive maize breeding and to chart a new research agenda. Gender-responsive breeding means understanding differences in perceptions, priorities, and needs of women and men, and incorporating those into planning and decision-making during variety development. For maize, there are a lot of knowledge gaps concerning how to operationalize this. I'm going to share a few that we've identified in our paper. First is the challenge of understanding gendered preferences. A lot of recent work on gender and breeding has focused on women's unique trait preferences, which are reasonably clear for some crops. For instance, you often see that women show disproportionate interest in traits related to processing, cooking, taste, and storage when it comes to things like cassava or sweet potatoes. For maize, though, men and women's trait preferences often look very similar, and differences are much less consistent. One reason that gender-based differences in maize preferences are unclear is methodological. A very common way of measuring preferences is to collect feedback from farmers who visit researcher-managed on-farm trials of maize varieties. But in that setting, farmers' opinions about which varieties are best are taken outside of their household context, where different needs, constraints, and priorities can factor in. These evaluations also don't generally let farmers process, cook, or taste the varieties, which we know can matter to women. Ultimately, these trial-based evaluations don't tell us much about farmers' real-world seed choices. The second set of challenges associated with gender-responsive maize breeding are operational. We don't yet have quantifiable benchmarks for traits women might care about that haven't been actively bred for before, like those related to flour yield or cooking quality. Even if we did have targets for those traits, adding new traits to researchers' breeding objectives could mean sacrificing gains in other areas, like resistance to drought, pests, or disease, or for better nutrition. Finally, gender-responsive breeding research has focused heavily on individuals' trait preferences without understanding how these preferences translate into seed choice. It may not matter how much women say they care about early maturity or flour yield if they have little say in the decision about which seed to use, or they can't access those seeds. The complexity of decisions is especially the case when we're talking about maize grown on jointly managed plots, but those plots are often set aside in gender disaggregated studies. There's a lot we still need to know about seed choice aside from preferences. Our team is working to fill some of these knowledge gaps. We're trying out new ways to understand farmer preferences through farmer-managed tricot trials. We're exploring ways to actually breed for gender-relevant traits, and we're stepping back to understand seed demand and seed choice at the household and individual level. We hope you'll follow our work and look for our full paper. Thanks for listening.